Welcome to the 611 Films YouTube channel. We are back in 99. My name is David Groves, is one of your hosts. With me as always,
Neil McKay.
What's up? McKay's here. What's up?
What's going on?
Today we are talking about The Mummy.
The Mummy!
And not the piece of shit Tom Cruise movie that came out a few years ago. This is the Brendan Fraser. Not as bad.
It was,
Indiana Jones ripoff that I always was like,
it
never
was
watched.
The weird thing is, when I saw it at the time, I didn't really like kind of connect the dots to that. But then, in like kind of refreshing my memory, then I was like, yeah, this is like kind of borrowing a lot from Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, very serialized type thing.
The weird thing was like when I saw it in the theaters in '99, I didn't like it at all. And now I'm kind of like watching it again, and I'm like, okay, this was all right. This was like, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't like an Indiana Jones, but I mean, it was fun. It was, the special effects surprisingly held up. There was some good stuff about it. I was like, okay, all right, this was better than I remember. Right. I'll say that.
I definitely would say yes. I think that the humor is pretty good. Everybody in the cast pretty solid, and yeah, you're right. For a movie that isn't reliant or like is now kind of saying, hey, here's more of like an effects driven versus practical type thing. You know, they did pretty well in that first one because I think they had that budget. Because if you look at The Mummy 2 and then 3 and then Scorpion King and then the other, you can see the budget going down further and further.
2 years later, The Mummy Returns has that shot. They say it's the worst effect shot of all. It's the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, as the Scorpion King. I mean, it's hilariously bad.
There's one shot that holds the crown for the worst visual effect shot of all time. It's the Rock from The Mummy Returns. Whew. Now, whether or not it's actually the worst VFX shot of all time, maybe not, but it sure is goofy looking.
And it's like this was only 2 years later. It was coming off a big hit, The Mummy, and it's like that's what they did. Like, oh, it's just so bad.
Yeah.
But this first one looked, I mean, there was some really cool stuff. Like the whole like skeleton turning into it, like, and the Beatles and everything. Like there was some really like freaky cool stuff that they were doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can tell you like the plot is so just, I think they might have overcomplicated it a little too much with how much was going on.
Yeah, it was.
But overall,
there was some plot holes and some weird things. Like, I mean, just the whole, they tortured him and then put him in a tomb or whatever, and then it was like, but there's a chance he could come back as this immortal thing. It's like, what? Why would you do that? Why would you like allow that to happen? Like with your torturing?
No. And rewatching, I'm rewatching it, and they're cornered by the actual mummy, and like that kind of like before third act, before the finale, and hey, live today, fight tomorrow. And I'm like, the mummy could kill you right now. He's right there, and then he just leaves.
Yeah, yeah, there was some bizarre things happening, but I mean, it's a fun thing if you can get beyond that. I think my problem with it was because I'm like kind of watching some of the highlights and I'm like, okay, this is like better than I remember, but I think some of those characters got on my nerves a lot. I think that was my issue with it the first time around. I think the whole I think there was a little bit they were trying too hard for the comedy, like to hit those beats. Because they're in the middle of like a fight sequence and it's like, no, you idiot, say it like, and they're just doing quips and one-liners to each other. And I'm like, yeah, can you just be like serious for like this part and then do the funny stuff? Like it just was like, it was weird. It was like they were trying to pack too much in with humor and action. And it was just like, you're just like,
I don't know what it was. I guess it was it was
PG-13. Yeah.
PG-13?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A very bloodless, which you would, I guess, kind of expect.
It was very strange because like I go back and I watch, like I remember very vividly like that the guy Benny at the end who gets killed by the like his lamp goes out or his fire thing, and then the little Beatles come out and that was like, oh, like when I saw it in the theaters, but then like I look at they couldn't really show it because it's PG-13. But just the insinuation of what's going to happen to him was enough to like just give me the,
there were a lot of little moments. I was like, oh yeah, they did well with that. But and again, you're right. I think that a little bit too much of that comedy, that quippiness, there was a little bit of chemistry with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz's character, and I mean,
A little bit,
good-looking
but
people, and then they just fall in love, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
and,
it's
there's you're not really looking in this movie for like character driven like stuff, which is fine.
Yeah. There's something about her that just kind of bothered me. Like she kind of is like this, like, I don't know, this, stereotypical like damsel in distress, but then she's like, oh no, this is how you say the thing and this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, you're the one that like kind of like read from the book and caused this whole thing to happen. And there was just weird stuff like Brendan Fraser's like, I killed that thing, man. Like, don't worry about it. And like you just killed a walking skeleton. Like, the thing is undead. Like, how do you not know that? And you think a gun is gonna? There's some of the stuff that these characters were doing. I was just like, what? Like, come on, dude. Like, you're not that stupid in this movie, are you? Like,
I guess, yeah. It was a lot of that. Like, we gotta like wink at the camera. We're winking at the camera with this. It's just a movie, guys. And I guess I read as I normally do. Like, I see the Rotten Tomatoes or like look at the like Roger Ebert review. And he's like, yeah, I think he would say the same. He was saying the same thing that we were saying. It's just kind of like, it's not bad. It's not good.
And it was, and I mean, again, I was working at the movie theater when this came out, and it was a big hit. It a little bit, I mean, it's obviously overshadowed by Star Wars coming out like a month or two later. I think this thing came out in like April or May, and Star Wars was out like a month later.
Yeah, I didn't look that up yet.
But up until Star Wars coming out, I mean, it was king at the box office. I mean, it was making boku bucks.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you'll probably flash the thing with like the biggest breadwinners of that year. I want to say it's got to be the only things that beat it was Star Wars, Sixth Sense, maybe The Matrix, but like it had to be up there in that top 3, top 5.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's not the only because I was going to mention, like, not to say that Brendan Fraser had his like downfall or like he left the industry completely. Because I looked that up right before this, and he'd worked very steadily. He did the sequel and a couple things right after, but no one knew like where he went for about 50. Like, he did The Whale a couple years ago, which won
he got the Oscar. Yeah,
but you're right. It was that thing of just like, this was sort of, he did that movie Blast from the Past. I don't think we're gonna get to that one.
Oh, that was the same year. That was also that was not very good.
Right. Hey.
But he was,
we've said like, it before, we're not going to do every single night.
He was branching off though. Like didn't he do Gods and Monsters like a couple? Did he do this? Like, did he do that before this or after that?
Well, I think it wasn't that was 90s.
Oh, was that like was that the 90s? For some reason, I was thinking that was like a couple years after this. But
I don't know. I could be wrong.
He was definitely doing. He was trying to get out of that whole like what the caveman movie, Encino Man thing, and do different stuff. And I applaud him for that.
No, I mean, look, he started his movie with a very dramatic with School Ties.
With School Ties, right? Yeah. And then he was like, all right, I don't want to. So he's doing like the serious indie movies. He's doing the action stuff, and then there was something that happened like with some kind of like sexual misconduct or something that he just kind of was like, I can't do this anymore, like with this industry, like and these people and what I'm dealing with. And I thought that's kind of why he kind of was like, got out of the public eye a little bit and then kind of made a return with The Whale and whatnot. But
well, like, it's funny too. I'll flash that too with the IMDb. It's like I said with like The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. He never really left, but he was doing Tony Scott films, or he did this film. He was never the star of anything ever again. Mm-hmm. But he never really truly, like, there's no like 5-6 year hiatus like on his IMDb, as you see.
Yeah,
he did, but those movies like no one else has.
Yeah, it's the same as like when John Travolta did Pulp Fiction, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's like the Phoenix from the ashes." Like he came back. I mean, he was always working in the '80s. It's just nothing he ever did anything. That's why it was sort of like Pulp Fiction was this kind of like comeback, because he just did all these duds for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I don't know what I mean. I'm not saying Brendan Fraser was doing duds, but like I think he was purposely kind of not doing the like, oh, I'm going to go out there and be the next Tom Cruise. He was kind of like a little bit more reclusive.
This movie, I'd say it's like it's a dad movie. Like my dad would just on a Sunday afternoon, if it's on, would be just sitting on the couch watching it.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah, and I guess the kind of lesson I learned from it is like, because when I saw it in the theaters 25 years ago, I was like, and then just seeing it now, I'm like, Oh yeah, okay. That surprisingly held up better than I thought it was after all these years. Again, don't take it too seriously. It's just a fun little ride, but and it is very much like you're kind of doing the Indiana Jones,
right?
Yeah. I mean, even like the set designs. I'm like, are you just going into the studio and using like Raiders of the Lost Ark for this?
All right, guys, thanks so much for watching this episode of Back in '99. Please give it a like, subscribe, comment down below what your thoughts on The Mummy are, and we'll see you again on the next episode. Later.